Welcome to the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. I'm Ben Shirey. Matt Markham, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about something that, we hear questions around this all the time. If you're in Facebook groups, if you're in any of those social media channels and things where facilities are talking, every day I see somebody different asking, how should I pay my manager? Should I hire a manager for my facility? When is it time? What's the right kind of management? So we're going to kind of dive into what is the right kind of management for facilities, what size facilities need what kind of management, what are we seeing that's working well in the industry, and kind of just try to give some insight to maybe some bonus structures and some comp plans and things like that facilities are offering management that's working.
Yeah, and feedback that we're getting,
Yeah, for sure.
From facility owners.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of just start with what kind of management does a facility need? What size of a facility needs what kind of management? Yeah. And so there's like three types of management options, right? You want to go ahead and we'll just kind of dive into those.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you have, depending on the size and complexity of the business, you have your part-time managers, that need to be there, 30, 35 hours a week or so, you'd say. And they're kind of just there to manage and to have a presence for the business. And then you have your full-time managers. They're going to be, there more often. Again, probably a larger operation that would need something like that. And there's different things that, you could have to accommodate those managers. And then you have your property management companies there.
Third-party management.
Third-party management.
Yeah, so we're not going to discuss third-party management at all today. If you want to talk about or hear us talk with third-party managers, we've done multiple podcasts with management services and things like that, so you can check out one of those. We're going to mainly just focus on the part-time and full-time management options versus an owner-operator. At what time is it right to bring somebody in? So, yeah, I think to kind of preface what you're saying there, with the part-time manager, typically, that's going to show up somewhere around 200 units, 25,000 rentable square feet, somewhere in that range. Less than that, you're probably an owner-operator. You probably don't have a large enough facility that can afford a manager at this point. But again, it depends on the complexities of the business.
Yeah, I see it often. There's some 20, 30 unit facilities that have a manager on site, full-time sometimes. Yeah. Again, depends on the business.
Yeah, and it also depends on other businesses, right? So like if the facility owner also owns we've seen it with hardware stores or, the case. Typically there's another business involved at that point.
And they're running multiple businesses, not just that facility.
The manager is at that point. Yeah. So as far as just the facility though, normally if all that you're doing is a storage business with less than 200 doors, you're probably stuck. Yeah. You're going to be managing that yourself. Yeah. But then more than that, the 200 to 600 doors is probably a variation between part-time, full-time, the lower end of that being, 20 to 25 hours. But again, it definitely depends on the operation that you're running. So a couple questions to always ask yourself is, if I'm an owner operator and I'm looking to bring on a manager, how much time am I spending managing my facility? If my management tasks aren't taking me 20 hours a week, I'm not ready yet, right? You're still not going to warrant bringing on a manager in most cases, unless you're 85, 90% occupied and
pen and paper.
And but I'm saying, and you're generating enough revenue to offset it. So like, what is the other question to ask is like, what is my time worth as the owner operator? If my time is more valuable being spent elsewhere versus just managing the facility, then it's time to bring in a manager. That way I can free up my time to grow the business. Yeah. So a lot of these management questions definitely circle around the idea of what is your business trying to accomplish? Like, what are the goals for my business? If I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to add another facility, then I definitely need to free up my time to focus on other things where I'm more valuable.
Yeah, or if you're trying to step away, it's later in life and you're trying to make a move, and maybe your time's a little more valuable to you at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and we've just seen it all across the board. So there's not like a line in the sand. Hey, here's when you hire part-time, here's when you hire full-time. You have to evaluate your business. The other thing to look at is, is your occupancy stagnant? Are you not getting new renters in because you're busy with other things? And a manager could focus on bringing in new rentals, right? And focus on streamlining the processes so that way you can scale up and rent more units. Or, if your business has been sitting there for a while and you haven't increased rates. Yeah. So that's lost revenue for your business where, the manager may be able to dive in and focus on, hey, Here's how we should be implementing rate increases. Here's some different things that we could try. And they have enough time to focus on that and run the reporting and see the metrics behind those rate increases and how many move outs do they drive and how much revenue can we gain. So there's definitely a lot of things there between those sizes. But the most common things there is, less than 200 doors, you probably don't have a manager. If you do, it's part-time. It's very small part-time. 200 to 600 part-time, getting into full-time, and then over 600 doors, you probably want a full-time person on site at that facility. Yep. So, and then the other thing that I didn't bring up is multiple locations, right? If you have a full-time manager, they can bounce between locations. You can have boots on the ground one day at each location or something like that. Yep. So, yeah.
Cool. And then there's different types of managers. You were talking about the metrics and, maybe driving more revenue and, looking at move-ins, move-outs, rate increases. That brings into the question, what type of manager or what kind of experience are you looking for in a manager? Mm-hmm. And again, that goes back to evaluating your business needs. Are you trying to implement these things? Are you trying to scale? Are you trying to step away? So
right. Yeah. What are you looking to get out of your business? I mean, if you don't know what you're looking to get out of your business, that's definitely the first question you should ask yourself.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to hire a manager if you don't really know what you want to do.
Yeah, have a goal, have a target, have something that you're shooting for, know what you want before you can hire somebody to do what you want. Yep. So that's kind of the size of facilities that's going to need a certain type of manager. And then moving across those lines, let's talk about when is it the right time to hire the manager, as far as we kind of touched on it a little bit, but as far as, at what point are you too busy that you no longer can grow your business, and understanding your restraints as the owner, right? So we talk to all different types of owners. If you're an owner that is not super procedurally driven, you're going to struggle to grow your business. And so having a manager that offsets you is such a valuable thing to have for a business. And we work with facilities that, they have an owner that just cares about the revenue side, and then they have a manager that cares about the customer side. And we've talked to tons of these facilities where it's like the manager is running that business, and the owner is making sure that they're making money. And so, are you as the owner holding your business back from generating more revenue? And if you are, it's probably time to bring in somebody to offset your competencies.
Yeah. Sometimes, you might be better at running the business, and then that's where you might need a manager that's better operationally, to help scale the business. Mm-hmm. You're good with the numbers, they're good with generating those numbers, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and I've talked to enough owners to know that some owners can't talk to customers, right?
Or and do not like to be at the facility.
So if you hate customer service, probably want a manager.
Yeah.
But some people don't think about these things, and they think, they have the storage facility. There's a lot of exits right now because owner operators are frustrated with the management that's going into the business, because they don't feel like they can hire somebody to do it, but they also don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right. And so you definitely, your business, look at what could come out of the business. If you brought somebody in, how much revenue would you have to increase at your facility if you brought in a manager? Yeah. And is there a path to do that? And if there is, it's not a bad route to go. If there's no path to increase your revenue by hiring a manager and you can't afford it, it's probably a good time to sell to somebody that does know how to operate a smaller facility.
Yeah, if you're at the point where you really don't want to scale and you're happy with 100% occupancy, unless you really enjoy storage, and that's just kind of your goal, that's totally fine. But if you've lost that drive to scale, maybe you've been in it for 30 years, 20 years, 15, who knows, maybe it is time to look into, passing that torch to someone that can scale that business, make it more profitable.
Absolutely. It's never a bad idea to have an exit strategy. And a lot of people, these are their retirement plans. They have this, then they're going to pass it on, or they're going to retire off of it. And that's absolutely fine. Yeah. However, that's probably also a time to bring in a manager, because it's like if as the owner, all of a sudden my time is more valuable elsewhere, it's time to hire somebody else that's focused on the business. Yeah. Like somebody has to be focused on these facilities. It is no longer an industry where you can just have a storage facility and it just does well.
Yeah.
In some tiny markets, maybe you're at 100% occupancy and you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
But in most cases, it's going to require focus. It's going to require marketing. It's going to require digging into the metrics of what's working, what's not working. Like there's management that needs to happen at these facilities. And that's why we see so many people complaining about, hey, I can't get my occupancy up. I can't get online rentals. I'm not online. I don't have an online presence, and nobody's walking into my business anymore, right? Like there's a lot of things that are happening where the industry is evolving. And if your goal is, I want to just retire and I just want to sit on this, you might need to bring in a manager to protect the asset.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Just a couple things to think about of when is the right time, to bring somebody in to help you with your facility. Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and let's talk a little bit about what should you be paying a manager? What can you expect to pay a manager? What are other facilities doing that we're seeing? Compensation plans, bonus structures, that sort of thing. What's working?
Yeah, I'd be happy to discuss some trends that I see with managers. There's multiple different levels, and just based off of the experiences that I have each day with managers, you can tell which ones are compensated better than others. And that's their interest in the business. But yeah, you can touch on that, and then I'll kind of feed off what you say there.
Yeah, no problem.
I can't wait to discuss this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So compensation plans for your business are super important, right? For one, as the owner, you want to make sure that when you're hiring somebody, you can put a plan in place that aligns your interests with your employee's interest, right? Like if you want your employee to succeed, when they succeed, you succeed. Yeah. So having aligned interests makes so much sense. So there needs to be a good bonus structure in place. And so, this varies based on the business that you're trying to build. Yeah. Some owners, again, only care about revenue. And again, business is business. It's there to generate money. Everybody cares about revenue. However, other people take a higher stance on or a higher priority to customer service or something else like that. And that's absolutely fine. Run the business the way that you're happy with the way your business runs. Then incentivize your manager to meet those goals, right? Yep. So part-time, you're probably typically looking somewhere in the $15 to $20 an hour range is what you're going to pay. We do see other facilities that pay strictly commission, right? And there is no hourly rate. In those cases, that's fine to try those. You're probably going to hire and fire a lot. Yeah. Because you're going to bring somebody in, you have to find for sure the right type of person that's 100% commission driven. People want a little bit of security, especially when they're coming into a lower level position. So you can't expect everybody that you hire to have like an entrepreneurial mindset of, I want commission, I want to make more if there are people that are driven by security.
Yeah. They like the base salary.
And they want to have a good floor of, so set the floor high enough that you're going to hire a decent person and then give them the incentives to push them to the next level.
Yeah. And if you find someone that's commission driven and that they're really good at producing based off of their commission, there's a lot of other markets out there where they're going to do well.
Yeah. And it's hard to find a part-time person like that. Yeah. Like those people are a driven person is going to look for focus. Yeah. And they want to be able to put their focus into one thing and drive. And that's the commission side of it is hard part-time. That's just my experience with it, right? I might be wrong. Maybe somebody else that's working really well and you have a commission-based part-time person. It's a lot of turnover is what we typically see.
Yeah. Yeah. We bought a vacuum cleaner from someone that was part-time, commission-based.
Selling a vacuum and then running a facility on the side. Then if you're looking for full-time management, you're going to be looking somewhere, again, in 2025, your base salaries are going to be somewhere $35,000 to $50,000 is what we typically are going to see. Again, pay your people to make sure that they're not stressed financially or they're not going to do a good job of work. Yeah. And then incentivize them to get to that next level. And so definitely the companies that pay better have better success with their managers. They're better performing. They are lower delinquencies. They are better with rate increases. Some of the facilities, and I'll kind of just touch on this one really quickly and then toss it back over to you, is I was doing a card migration for a facility that was moving to CC storage. And so we were migrating their payment methods from one software to ours. And so I called the manager because there was about 30 customers. This is about a 400 door facility, but they had a full-time manager on site. Super solid full-time manager. So I called her. She wasn't even in the office. And I said, hey, just whenever you have a chance, I got 30 customers on this list that I couldn't map cards to because the names and the card numbers didn't match up with the report that was sent. So whenever you have a chance, I want to walk through these tenants and see if if they're paying with cash or they don't have a card in this import or whatever. And she's like, okay, well, just go ahead and start giving me the names while she was walking around the facility. Yeah. We went through the entire list, 30 tenants, and she knew every single customer on that list. She knew if they were paying with cash, check, or card. She knew if they were paying with card, but the card was under a different person's name, and I was able to map it that way. And that facility had one auction in the last 6 months. They had less than 2% delinquencies or customers that were past due. So... And their revenue, I mean, their average ticket is almost 3 times what our normal average ticket is that we see. Like they're processing well over $100,000 in card volume at just this one facility with less than 400 doors. So having the right manager in place can definitely change the way that your business runs.
Yeah.
You might feel locked into, oh, my market's not quite as good. That's true to some extent. However, you can differentiate in any market.
Yeah.
And
we have facilities nationwide, and we see facilities perform like that all over the nation. Doesn't matter if you're in Tennessee, West Virginia, Oregon. We see high-performing facilities that are no different than yours, really doing very well. It's because it's how their business is ran.
Yeah. Yeah, and having the manager, and that manager, again, didn't talk to her specifically about her comp plan, but I talked to the owners, and I know enough about the business to know they're compensating her well, and she's doing a really good job.
Yeah. And they're benefiting from that.
Exactly.
Big time.
Everybody wins. Again, having interests that align and then finding a good manager.
Yeah.
It's hard to hire. It really is. It's definitely a stressful process. Hire and fire fast.
Yeah.
If it's not going to work, cut ties, try to find the next person. It is going to be a little bit of a turnover game till you find the right person, and take your time, do your due diligence in the hiring process. You probably don't want to hire every person that walks in just to try them out, obviously, but be quick to identify if they're going to work out or not.
Always winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of our company's core values.
Yeah.
So along with that too, identifying the right personality traits, people that are not wanting to be on the phone, people that only want to do email and text notifications and they're not okay with calling customers. It definitely weighs on the management. You want to have good notifications through your systems that are automated and easy. Yeah. And then you also want to have somebody that's okay with just calling somebody because they're going to go past due. I've seen companies that have implemented calling before the late fee hits, and that's done really well. And the customers appreciate getting that phone call reminder versus just a text and email.
Just a reminder. Yeah.
But again, it's just different strategies. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but there are facilities where it works really well, and just kind of knowing what you want for your business.
Yeah, we see the trend, and that all started with that facility that he was talking about. From the very beginning, there was an interest, because typically we do a demo with a manager. That's the first one we do a demo with, and you can just tell right off the bat, well, first of all, they show up. That typically means there's some sort of interest or similar interest with the business owner. But it's nice to see a manager that cares about the bottom line of the business, that cares about the owner at a personal level, at a business level. And it's just night and day compared to the ones that you can tell are just there 9 to 5 or, part-time, and they're probably not making that much. Well, there's a lot of missed opportunity in that for the business. And the business owner never knows because it never gets past that manager.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then on the side of incentivizing that. So if you give them a salary, great. Let's incentivize them to make sure that there's an option for them to push the business farther, right? Yeah. You should definitely have revenue-based goals for your or occupancy-based goals, and those can be two separate things, right? I can have a 6-month period where I'm pushing for occupancy. And so we're going to incentivize on new move-ins, right? Maybe your facility needs to get more reviews, and I'm going to incentivize my manager on 5-star reviews on move-ins.
Yeah.
Right. And so typically those review the review based incentives are typically $25 to $50 for a 5-star review from somebody that's moved in a certain date range. That's very common. It varies a lot. You can do something different, but that's typically what we see somewhere in that ballpark. And then on the other side of it, with the occupancy based goals, it varies, but you're going to see if you increase the occupancy 5% above 80%. If you're stuck at 80%, you're trying to get to 85. When you hit 85, then there's a set number.
Depends on how the facility is, if they're leasing up still, and that also correlates with rent raises. Like if you can raise the rent to get some people moved out that are have been stagnant for a while to get that occupancy up. If that occupancy goes up with an increased rent rate, I mean, that's a win-win, and it kind of has to correlate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be more of the revenue-based goals. Yes. As far as, so the other one is, so you have your occupancy-based goals, your customer service-based goals are the two we see a lot of, and then as well as the bottom line. Like, can we increase the bottom line? Like, right now our average 5x10 is renting for $75. Can we get that average to $80? And when we hit that number, we're going to incentivize.
Yeah.
Or, so you can you can have other goals where the manager's involved in the rate increases. Again, going to your manager, and there's this comment from a book that I like that they always say, we want to build a team of missionaries, not mercenaries, right? Yeah. So when you hire somebody, you don't want to have to just make them do their job. You want them to feel like they're part of the team and that they're they buy in, right? So incentivizing them on the rate increases makes them a little less frustrated when somebody calls in and complains and says, "Oh man, you guys raised my rate. What's going on?"
Yeah.
And then the manager, so many times when we talk to them, feels like, "Oh, I'm in this bad spot. My job sucks. I deal with these angry customers all the time because the owner wanted to raise rates."
Yeah.
And if
the
manager,
owner's the only one that benefits from
yes,
that. The
exactly.
manager has to deal with it.
And so if the manager doesn't want to raise rates, then that puts your manager in a really bad spot. Yeah. So definitely incentivize increasing your net rentable for your asset.
And if the manager decides on their own to raise the rent because they do a good job, they've been doing it for a while, that's great. Or if the owner communicates with the manager and you guys come up with a plan to raise rent, well, now if that manager knows that they're gonna, they're incentivized, they're gonna make some money on that rental rate increase. That conversation is going to be completely different with that disgruntled customer.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's going to be some confidence. They're going to work their magic to kind of calm that customer and keep them there because they're going to make something from that. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then it also does one other thing. And when you align goals, it also clarifies decision making, right? So maybe your manager has the ability and you've given them the permission to say, well, you can change somebody's rates by a certain percentage if they call in frustrated or whatever, but they don't want to now because they want that higher rate because they're going to get a bonus off of it.
They're going to work their magic to keep that person happy. Yeah.
Again,
at that rate.
Building a successful business that's going to sustain requires bringing in the right people and then aligning goals and finding that right person that wants to do the same thing that you want to do and get your business on track. So hiring a manager is a super stressful thing for most businesses. We're
not saying it's easy to find that person either. I know some of you guys are like, yeah, well, find them for me.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't start a hiring service yet, but maybe it's something. No, but it's definitely a process. But it is a possibility. Yeah. Like we've seen companies that have brought in great managers and have absolutely increased revenue at facilities and increased occupancy and have increased the customer service. Like those people are out there. It's a job to find them. Yeah. It's easier said than done.
And sometimes it's family members.
There.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just someone that's worked with you at another business or that worked with you years ago, or for you years ago. There is kind of a trend with that, but sometimes it's just somebody that they found, in their area, and it just worked out real well.
Yeah.
And there might have been 20 people before them to get to that person. But, it differs for every business, and it depends on where you're located and what's available.
Absolutely. And again, a better compensation plan brings better candidates.
Yeah.
Right. And so, a lot of what we try to do even in our business is we pay well and we try to get referrals from our employees of saying like, hey, have you worked anywhere else? And of somebody that you want to work with or somebody that had a really good drive.
Yeah.
A 15-minute interview, 2 15-minute interviews doesn't really tell you a whole lot about a person's character.
Yeah.
But working with other people and you've been around them in other bad environments, other toxic work environments, and seeing how they handle those things, those are so much more valuable. So ask around, ask your friends if they know of somebody that would be a good fit for this type of position. And that does generate, there is a lot of interest right now in people trying to better themselves and people looking for better positions and looking for better companies to work for.
Better opportunity.
So while the labor force is low or feels like it's hard to find a good job,
the quality of the labor force.
Yeah. Most of the jobs that we've hired for, we've never posted a position. We try to snipe people. We go after. We go after the people that we want, and has worked really well. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so maybe you give a commission to your employee for referring a good employee. So anyway. That kind of sums up most of our thoughts behind what we're seeing in the workforce or in the management hiring process. Different compensation plans. Do you need a manager yet? Can you afford a manager yet? Make sure you've gone through all of those questions and make sure that when you go to bring on a manager that you have a plan in place to align your goals with their goals and their targets. And that'll definitely help you find the right fit.
Yeah, and it all starts with you evaluating your business. I talk to people all the time that have they've been doing this for 30 years, since 1986, I heard yesterday, and they just kind of want to go to Florida and chill. So, that's the time where he needs to evaluate his business, and that might mean improving the operations as far as the management software that you're using or, any sort of security that needs to be implemented, to streamline things. But it all starts with you evaluating what you need, what you want, and then what you want for your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, great point. And and so many people, think that the idea of a manager is really good, but they're not they're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, so make sure you're in a place where you can afford it. Make sure you're in a place where it makes sense, where you actually can free up some of your time to do something that's more valuable to you. So,
and we've made a lot of points. You know, this is just, you know, Ben and I talking back and forth based off what we see, but we'd love to hear from you guys. So if you'd like to leave comments, you know, on the podcast or, you know, on social media, message us, shoot us an email, you know, sales@ccstorage.com, matt@ccstorage.com. We'd love some feedback. You know, Ben at CC Storage, but yeah.
Absolutely. Or comment in the YouTube feed if you're watching the podcast. But yeah, we'd love to hear what's working for you, what hasn't worked for you.
Yeah.
I'm always
horror stories.
Yeah,
absolutely. We're all about it.
Absolutely. If you have a horror story and you want to join me on the podcast to talk about it, I'm happy to do that kind of stuff. I love bringing owners and operators and stuff onto the podcast as well. So
we had a Halloween podcast.
With some horror stories about some bad tenants and stuff. So.
I get to hear some cool things all the time. So we'd love to hear your feedback, and you know, we'd love to share.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining me today, and until the next one.
Yeah, man. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning into the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If this episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a property management software that can be utilized by your business at no cost to you. Pass the fees for credit card processing onto your tenants. Increase your business's revenue. No software fees, no contracts, no per unit costs, no surprises. So hope you check out CC Storage as the sponsor of our podcast, and we hope you tune in to the next episode. Thank you.